Seer Show is a live broadcast of truth seekers and believers, empowering the evolution of consciousness. Raphael and Celeste will dive deeper than the mainstream media while answering the mind's deeper questions and transforming conversations. They will have unique guest speakers who will share knowledge, tools, and techniques to create coherence in our mind, body, and spirit.
Good morning, Celeste. It is amazing. Every time I see you, I am so thrilled.
And good evening from beautiful Byron Bay here in New South Wales, Australia. 7 p.m. evening show for us.
That's it. So we have a special guest coming on very shortly. And one of the things that we want to talk about makes some people shiver, doesn't it?
It's almost like confronting, because I know that warmth is my comfort, but anything that's cold is confronting. And such is life. We keep ourselves sometimes safe in the warm comfort, but life then sometimes doesn't develop or progress if we don't look at the fears and go into that uncomfortableness. So this is where Brendon comes in. Fascinating person who helps people go probably from that safety into, no, I'm going to jump into life. I'm going to jump into the freezing cold situation, and I'm going to win. I'm going to conquer life.
You know, real growth comes from that. If you think of it like a diamond, right? It has to go through certain pain for it to be beautiful. And I know that you're beautiful, so you must have gone through some pain. Because, my dear, you are a diamond for sure.
You know,
let's go ahead and bring. Let's go ahead and bring in Brendon.
Hello from Byron Bay, also.
Oh, look at that!
Yeah,
I am so lucky.
This is the health and wellness capital of Australia, I feel. So,
is it because you have beautiful beaches? What's going on? Tell me about that.
I think, beautiful beaches, beautiful nature. I think it's just a spot that really attracts people that want to be active and live a healthy outdoors lifestyle, because, we have beautiful weather for the majority of the year, and there's just so much to experience in the outdoors here that it makes you want to get outside. You don't want to stay inside and just be cooped up. So
then we need to send all the teenagers over there. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it could do some good healing. I tell you what, it's pretty powerful nature over here. So
because all teenagers, all they want to do is be on their tablets or on their game consoles. They don't want to step out into nature, which is a shame. Because when I was a kid, all I did was out. I don't even know what the inside of the house looked like when I was a kid. All I did was play outside.
Yeah, I was the same. Yeah, I was always my grandmother used to have her next to her house was undeveloped, so we used to be playing out in the bush all the time, and it was either that or I was playing sport. I don't recall playing video games too often. Obviously, I feel so grateful I didn't really grow up in the era of having mobile phones at school either. I'm kind of probably the last generation that didn't have that.
True. And the way you just said that last generation that didn't have that, isn't that scary? But it's so true the way you just said that, because that next generation now, they're so addicted. And I feel though here in Byron, and just less than an hour ago, I quickly drove into the village, I call it, where I have reception and everything. And I actually saw a bunch of teenagers, and they were all in almost like dirty clothes and on their bicycles. And the dog was off leash running with them. And I thought, that's so good to see. So I think Byron is a little bit of that hub where parenting and families, the kids are either surfing at 6 o'clock in the morning before they go to school, after school, straight away up into the mountains, beach, wildlife, bicycles. So it's a great place. Everyone needs to come once.
Oh, yeah. I have to come and visit. Celeste, I think I'm going to go into a new profession.
Who?
I'm going to go into thumb therapy.
So stick
a
with
lot of
thumbs.
teenagers.
So everybody who has their worn out thumbs, I can help them with that. I'm just kidding. But it's a beautiful thing that where you both are living, where people are taking advantage of what's everywhere. We even for people who live in the city life, right? They can still go out. They can still go explore. There's so many things in the world to see besides a computer screen or a video game monitor. Right?
Yeah, you even look in New York. I mean, it's obviously a massive city, and I've been there multiple times, but there's still so many beautiful nature areas within New York City itself, but then also even not that far out of it. It's just, I guess, sometimes you maybe have to be a little bit more intentional when you're in the city if you're not completely surrounded by it. Whereas here, we're kind of, because it's a bit more regional and country, you're just constantly surrounded by it. So sometimes it just takes that a bit more intentionality to, I guess, unplug out of that rat race that can become city living sometimes.
Well, in that case, I have to invite you to New York in July.
Yeah.
It's actually, I've been once. When did I come? I came in, I think it was August, and it was so hot. I was like, get me to a beach. But unfortunately, the beaches aren't quite to the level of Australia.
Well, we're going to be in Long Island, New York, and we have beaches. They're probably not as pretty as the ones that you guys are by, but it's still a beach.
Still water.
Still water.
Well,
if not, I'm sure the hotel would have a bathtub.
Yeah. And talking about bathtubs and water, in this case with Brendon, he's going to fill it up with ice. So, Brendon, I know there's so many amazing things you do with your clients, and we're so honored to have you as a guest speaker here, because I got to know you and what you do for people and their mental health, and how you welcome them into so many different tools and techniques. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for doing that for people. But secondly, tell us, what are your favorite parts of everything that you do, and what is the most effective? Let's just start, because I know there's so many different amazing things that you do.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll start with the ice immersion or ice baths, whether it's in a bath or, you can go, if you're in temperatures in New York, I guess you can go into freezing lakes and things like that. But you kind of touched on at the start where, probably in the middle of winter. But you touched on how we can kind of want to stay safe and comfortable, and it's so easy for us to do that now, because everything is with technology, it's at a touch of a button. So we can live life so comfortably, but that's not how we evolved to be the best versions of ourselves originally. So one of the greatest things I love with the ice is getting ourselves to take ourselves to places of healthy discomfort. It's like things that are getting us out of that comfort zone, but are making us, that's beneficial for us to become a better version of ourselves, and moving through mental resistance and creating mental fortitude. Because it's like, nobody wants to step into a freezing cold ice bath. I always say to clients, like, I've done over 1,000 of them, and there's always that tiny little bit of resistance of wanting to step into it. But I've just got so much proof of doing them previously and how incredible that I feel, that it always allows me to move through that resistance. But it's just also teaching us that we are not our mind. Like, I control my mind doesn't control me. And by stepping into that ice bath, I am taking control, not letting my mind take control of me. And that allows then to filter out through my everyday life as well, to be able to move through mental resistance and things that are challenging. So that's one big component of what I do and what I love. Breathwork is also a really beautiful one. It's obviously become very big now, with much more well-known, I should say, with, Wim Hof's teachings. So we have the power of that to upregulate ourselves if we're feeling quite tired and lethargic, or we can downregulate our nervous system if we're feeling really stressed and anxious. And we can also go into deep places of somatic release work, which is not my specialty, but I've done it, where we can move through trauma that's stored in the body, and we can go to places of bliss and joy and higher realms. So the breath and the ice are two of the most powerful tools, I think. And they're also essentially nearly free, except for maybe buying a little bit of ice. Our breath is free, and it's easy to get some cold water on your body as well.
Wait, did you say free?
Free, yeah, that's right, free. There's not too many things in the wellness space that you can up level which are completely free. So that's why they're two of the best things, because they're accessible to everyone.
But people don't take advantage of it.
Yeah, and it's I think the first part is having awareness of it, and then the second part is obviously having some guidance as well. But also the same thing again is being willing to step through resistance, because when you do the breath as well, there's that same resistance that comes up where it becomes uncomfortable and you're like, I want to stop. Like, why am I doing this? Like, that brain is just like, this isn't comfortable. My job is to keep you safe. Let's stop doing this. So it's the same thing, moving through that same kind of resistance again and getting to those levels of healthy discomfort to then actually feel, once we move past that, we actually feel incredible. We start to, access dopamine and adrenaline without cortisol, getting cortisol releases. So.
Wow.
Do you go into the different placements of the tongue when you do the breath? I teach Qigong, Hegang, and Negang. So we do all the different, the tongue placement, the saliva as part of your elixir of life, if you will. Do you guys go through that as well?
Not with the breathing techniques that I facilitate. I don't go into that. I've done a little bit of Qigong as well. Very basic, obviously, but I actually haven't really heard of doing much with the tongue through Qigong. So I'd be actually interested to find out more. But no, it's more about controlling the breath, like whether depending on what we're like, if we're trying to upregulate or downregulate the nervous system will depend on our breathing pattern, and then just making sure we're diaphragmatic breathing, so controlling our breath through the diaphragm, whether we're in the ice bath or we're doing like an upregulation type of breath work.
Beautiful. Yeah,
so I know that oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I remember learning from a Qigong was like, chest breathing is short life, diaphragmatic breathing is midlife, and then kidney breathing, from what I've heard, is long life. So, but I haven't really got to do much kidney breathing yet.
Yeah, so we go through. When I teach it, I try to tell people to imagine that the breath is coming in and it's going through every little part of our bodies, including our capillaries, down to our toes, and then we breathe it back out. And so imagine taking all the toxins out of your body, and that's the breath work. So that's the way I have people envision it. So then all of a sudden now they're going into a deeper type of breath. I found that a lot of people don't know how to breathe.
Yeah.
And it's weird, right? Because they're alive.
Yeah. It's, most people breathe through their chests, like that chest breathing and mouth breathing. And, our mouth is I mentioned this to Celeste when I was taking her through a breathwork journey. And, our mouth should be unless we're doing an up regulation, sometimes we'll breathe through our mouth. But if we're doing every general day-to-day breathing and breath control, we should be breathing in and out through our nose and staying calm. So it's keeping us in our parasympathetic nervous system. But so many of us are breathing through that chest all day, and we're constantly in this sympathetic nervous system response, which is why stress now is such a big thing for people. And that's becoming one of the biggest killers, because it's not even like just this acute high level stress. It's like this constant low level stress that we're living in all through the day, and we're never regulating ourselves back to that parasympathetic state.
Right. Wow. I mean, we do have this natural filter. Some people's filters are they're sticking out, out of their nose. They need to trim it sometimes.
Yeah, the nose hairs.
Some people are like, wait a minute, you need to trim those hairs. I get it. But we do have a natural filter, and you're right. Most people don't realize it. And mouth, especially if you see somebody who is trying to even learn to work out, learn to start moving, they're breathing through their mouth. Their shortness of breath. It's because they're not filtering the breath that goes in anyhow. And so we teach different breathing patterns of of how to breathe in. And for us, one of the simplest ones I teach is breathe in through your nose, count to 3, 1, 2, 3, hold it 1, 2, 3, let it out through your mouth 1, 2, 3, and then before you breathe in again 1, 2, 3. And people are like, oh my God, I'm exhausted from just breathing. I'm like, what? That's just normal. I breathe that way all the time.
Isn't that the one with the 4 corners, Brendon? Because
so the box breathing.
4 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 seconds. Yeah. So interesting. So maybe in New York it's a 3-second thing. You see city people, they're like, quick, let's get the 3 seconds up.
No. It's just to start them.
4 seconds.
No, it's
you
just,
can do anywhere between 3 and 5.
You know how many people would pass out if I told them 4 in the beginning, the first stages, because they're like, oh, I got to hold my breath for that long. Eventually, I'm like, you're going to go from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9. And people are like, oh my God, that's a lot of work. And all of a sudden now, once they get deeper into it, now they're doing not only breath work, but brain work. Because now all of a sudden the breath, if you will, is now you're getting more oxygen. You're getting more of the good thing inside of you. And especially when you're breathing through your mouth, like I said, you don't have that filter, right? What are your thoughts on that, Brendon?
Yeah, what's how you're saying with clients, I've had the same thing where, and we'll talk about this later with the men's events we'll do like a physical component and we'll do the breath work, same type of style. And for like a large majority of men, that's 10 times more challenging than the workout because they've never consciously sat with their breath before. So to be able to actually consciously sit with it and breathe, even some people struggle to have an inhale of 3 or 4 seconds because it's just they're used to such short, shallow breathing. So for them to do the 3-second inhale is even hard. And then obviously the hold is super challenging because, they've just never, probably in their whole life, actually consciously been with their own breath. It's just been autonomic.
Right.
So for the listeners, let's give away this little tool. So they can choose between 3 and 4 seconds, let's say. So it's 3 seconds in. So can you just go through that? So I just, because
so I'll just draw like a box. So basically you can do 3 seconds is great to start, especially if you have never connected to your breath before, like Raphael said. So you would just inhale for 3 seconds. And then you're going to pause and hold for 3 seconds. Then you'll exhale for 3 and then hold or pause again for 3. So that's your box, essentially one box. And then you'll go back to your inhale. And this is really good. And I teach this to a lot of people because you can do this sitting at your office desk. So for you to do something like a more Wim Hof upregulation, like you're not going to be like sitting at your work desk, right? You're going to look a bit strange. But that is say you're feeling really stressed and anxious at work, you've got a really heavy workload and you just feel like your nervous system is at its capacity. You can just sit at your desk. If you can, shut your eyes down just to bring down that sensory experience and just do like 5 to 10 rounds of that, which only takes a few minutes, and just to calm yourself. If you can tap in and do that a few times a day, if you're feeling like you're on edge all the time and your nervous system's at its capacity, it's a really simple tool that can be done anywhere.
Wow. Why do you think it's so confronting to people? Is it really because they're shutting down from the sensory overload, so nothing else is coming in to stimulate them? And is it then really that quietness where they go, whoa, this is just me and myself. How do I feel with me and myself? Is that the confronting part, the stillness?
Yeah. Well, we live in such a society. There's so many little dopamine hits all the time and distraction. Whereas like when we're talking about childhood and things like that as kids, and it was interesting. When I did a retreat about a year and a half ago, and we actually had our phones taken off us for the 5 days during the retreat. We didn't know the time either. And it was interesting to notice that when we got back to our rooms at night or just before dinner, that would be when we would check in and probably look at our phones. And that was like that little distraction, but we didn't have that. And it was just about sitting in the space. And most people feel uncomfortable just sitting in the space now and actually maybe being bored or even being with their own thoughts, because it's quite, like you said, confronting. So definitely to be able to just be with your own thoughts and then learning intentionally how to quieten the mind as well.
Mm. You know, one of the things that when I was a kid and we talked about it, I didn't have a phone like these kids, teenagers now. Now, I'm going to ask you, each one of you, how old were you when you actually got your own cell phone? Go ahead, Celeste, do you remember?
I was quite young for my age because, you know, I grew up with my parents touring. So I came from a theatre family. So it wasn't quite the normal, you know, every school, every day, or same home, same, you know. So you're talking to someone who grew up like a gypsy, traveling a lot. So safety was a big thing. So I actually got my first phone at 10. And it was a
What?
huge, yeah, I was like the only one. But I remember it was a huge.
Was it this big?
Yeah, it was exactly.
The Nokia
Hello?
brick.
It was a Motorola, bright yellow with like an antenna this big. It's like, yeah, but that was for safety. But because no one else had, then there was no such thing as texting or calling really, because no one else had it. It was really just for when, you know, mom and dad ring to know where I am, or, you know. Brendon?
But it wasn't used the way it is today. It was
No.
more like a necessity,
Yeah.
more
So
like you said, emergency or just in case. It wasn't like you were looking at your phone. It was just a piece of equipment if you needed to call, right? It wasn't like, let me spend 10 hours on this thing like this,
scrolling.
right?
Yeah. I think the scrolling creates a lot of sensory overload. And Brendon, you work a lot with that, with people who have so many thoughts, to calm that down. And as you said, there's so much stimulation. We almost are addicted to feel satisfied, instead of having that contentness in just sitting in silence with ourselves. So is that maybe an issue of the development of our society, that we just constantly need more stimulation to almost be happy? That was a deep question.
I got my first phone in year 12, so I would have been 17. But to go on to that point, same thing. All we had was Snake, like the game Snake. That was all we had, and same was messaging and calling. So there was none of that, saying that like those constant dopamine hits or the anxiety that things like Instagram can create for someone who's already, like, teenagers are already going through a very challenging time of, you know, learning who they are and how to be in the world and things like that. And then you add something like Instagram and Facebook on, and it's okay, I need to have, like, get likes. And it's like, you know, it starts to bring up all this anxiety if they're not getting it, or if they are getting it, it's like these little dopamine hits constantly that are hitting them. So yeah, I think it's got a lot to do with now how it's developing. And yeah, I think just the challenge of being present is much more challenging than when it was previous to, you know, having all the social media. Like, social media can be amazing and a beautiful tool, but I think it comes back to intentionality again. And it's something that I'm still even working on myself, is to be more intentional with social media and go on more times when I'm not on it at all. And I know that when I'm not on it, I feel great. Like times when I've gone to Africa and have had no reception at all, and it's like the nervous system just goes, like, it's a relax, you know. So
yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
What age do you believe to teach breathwork? Let's just say that the Australian government turns around and goes, Brendon, we are making you in charge of the Australian next generation in schooling system for ice baths and, you know, and fitness and breathwork. When do you believe teenagers should start breathwork?
yeah, I like, honestly, like, even, I mean, I probably wouldn't take them to, it depends on the type of breath work, but I'd be teaching them about breath control from an early age. So they start breathing properly, you know, and breathing in and out through their nose, and knowing how to regulate their nervous system. You know, now they're starting to do a bit of yoga and meditation at younger ages in schools now, which is great. And it's so needed.
Yeah.
And it's like learning, like, you know, even at 6-7 years of age, how to breathe properly, because it actually even has, you know, when we breathe properly, it actually causes different developmental as well. So if you're more of a mouth breather, the way your jaw develops is very different to if you breathe through your nose. So it's actually got a lot more than just like the nervous system aspect, but then even as we're growing up, the developmental aspect as well.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you know, I teach them at 3.5, 4.
Wow, that's
Really?
incredible.
My God. Do they do
Yeah,
the Kung Fu and the fighting classes as well at that age?
yeah. They need to learn how to breathe so that they can sustain longer. You know, one of the things that a lot of people, I have a lot of young people come to me and they try to keep up with me. I said try, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, you're not out of breath. I'm like, I've been breathing the whole time. Maybe you haven't. That's
Yeah.
the difference. I know how to breathe, right? So it's that sustainability that you can develop through breath work is that you can still run and not be out of breath. Because a lot of people, they'll run, you know, a couple of yards and all of a sudden they're like, you weren't breathing. You were holding your breath. And or you were in and out through your mouth instead of through your nose, and you don't understand the concept. A lot of people also get the dry mouth. The reason you're getting the dry mouth is because the air coming in is drying your mouth, when if you used your nose to breathe in, you wouldn't be drying your mouth. So there's a lot of concepts that I start teaching, especially at a young age, on how to breathe, especially when we fight. Because if you come, I'm a fighting school. So if you bring your child to me at 3.5 years old, they're going to put on gear and we're going to go at it. Right. And it's interesting because one of the things that they have to learn to do is put on a mouth guard. So in order to spar, you got to put the mouth guard on. Now your mouth is closed because you're protecting really not your teeth, but your brain. And now they're learning how to breathe through their nose. And
Wow.
to some of them, they freak out. They're like, I can't handle this. I'm like, of course you can. Slowly.
Slowly.
So
Yeah, and there's
here's a
actually
beautiful.
a
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say there's actually a UFC fighter who, through his whole fights, breathes through his nose. He maintains nasal breathing the whole time, and it just keeps him much more balanced. So when everything's going, like when the fight's getting really crazy, through his breathing through the nose, he remains very calm. So his decision making is better, and also the same thing, his endurance is better because he's conserving energy much more than if he was breathing just through his mouth.
The other day, I had 3.5, 4-year-olds. They were sparring, right? And they have this animosity that they don't want to put on the mouth guards. And I'm like, you guys have to wear it. You have to wear it. So the other day, one of the kids got punched in the lip by his own brother, who's also, they're twins, right? So he got punched in the lip with his own brother, and he started crying and he ran to his mother. I said, no, you cannot run to your mother. You got to come back. And even thank God the mom was she was on board with me. She goes, no, you go back to Sifu. So he comes back, he's crying, his blood's running down his lip. And then I said, just go like this, it's like, he's like, no. I said, okay. I said, okay, can you go on? No. I said, well, you have to. No. I said, come on, you could do it. I have faith in you. You're awesome. You're gonna be a black belt. You're gonna be a black belt. He goes, he goes, okay. So he sparred. And then the other kids saw that he's still sparring, but he's got blood running down, right? So then I took a picture, and I wish I would have had it today with me. And the next time that we sparred, every kid had their mouth guard on. So listen, I don't want to get a bloody lip. So all of a sudden, they were so proud. They're like, Sifu, look, I got my mouth guard on. I'm like, good. Okay, now don't close your mouth now. So now they're like, they were so proud to do this because they saw someone else with a bloody lip. So it kind of helped them see that there's a reason why we do certain things. And then I tell the parents of the older kids, I say, hey, listen, when your kids talk too much, make them put on a mouth guard. It'll quiet them a little bit.
Put them in an ice
tip for
bath.
teenagers. That might not quiet them though, maybe, but it could also go the other way. Could be some screaming.
You know, you said before, Brendon, that that UFC fighter, he has more endurance, but it also helps him more with decision making. I'd like to go back to that because I've noticed with my career in theatre, being side of stage, or back then when I used to do lighting, I used to sometimes, because when there's certain scenes, you almost like hold your breath because you're doing certain lighting, and then you release again. And I've adopted this terrible breathing, and obviously that's why I'm a client of yours, because I've had like 40 years of being in the show business where sometimes you like you tense and then you release again, and it's so unhealthy. But it's almost like that decision making through the day at work. So do you feel there's certain careers or like adults that spend most of their time at work more than at home, or many hours, 6-7 days a week? So what would your suggestion be for certain careers, or where do you see that come in terms of you want to have clear thinking for your job? You might find these breathing techniques will help you because it gives you better decision making and more of the clear thought. Could we go into that?
Yeah, so, with his fighting, when he's nasal breathing, he's staying in what his parasympathetic nervous system, which is his calm, rest and digest state. Okay, so when your body's calm, you can make clear decisions. If he was mouth breathing all the time and in his sympathetic nervous system, it's in your fight, flight, or freeze. So when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, you don't have the control. Like, your body will have a natural instinct one way or the other. So then, because you think about your body in that instance is thinking about survival. So it's like, how am I going to survive? And that's the clear focus. So it's very hard to make a calm decision if you're in survival mode. So that is the big thing. And how you can bring that in, I guess, to everyday life is the same as being able to remain calm, even say you're in, conflict with someone, is trying to just connect back in with that breath. Like, okay, am I breathing through my nose, in and out through my nose? Am I breathing from my belly, or am I tense and stressed up? Right? And relaxing the body, and you're going to be able to even handle things like conflict better, and make clearer decisions, be able to manage your emotions better.
When we think of, go ahead, Celeste.
No, in managing your emotions better. So it's like your reactions to the person, the situation, the environment. And I think a lot of people shoot too fast. And then it's almost like, it would trigger the other person, or the whole thing explodes more than it should be. So I guess this is also really good for people that sometimes react too fast with their emotions. So breathwork will also help them to find their center first, work out of the heart chakra, and how to respond to the other person.
And that's the key, respond, right, instead of react. Because when we react, often it will come from a place of our own trauma. Whether if we respond, we can come from a more grounded, calm, often the higher or better version of ourselves, instead of from our emotional triggers.
Beautiful.
If you think about people who hyperventilate, what do they give them? They give them a bag. Right? You get a bag so that they can learn to breathe, relax. Also, somebody who has anxiety, especially somebody who has an anxiety attack, what's the first thing that everyone tells them, especially, a doctor or something, like, breathe, slow down, take the breath in and out. And also, if somebody's helping someone else, you can't be like, okay, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. No, it's not like that. That doesn't help at all, right? It's more like, Breathe in.
Calmness.
Breathe
Yeah, as you were
out.
sharing.
Right, so nice and calm. There's such an amazing calmness to the way we can breathe, the way we can decipher between hyper and relaxed. Right? There's such a calming effect. It's almost like when you think of, can you breathe in while you're drinking? You can. Can you breathe out while you're drinking? You can. But you can't do it through your mouth, can you?
Yeah. Through the nose.
Think about a baby. Who knows how to breathe better than a baby? Probably nobody. Because how long were they in water?
That's right. 9 months.
How long do they breastfeed for? Even.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
It should be a lot longer, actually, the breastfeeding than nowadays. My mom actually took me straight after birth in underneath water. So it was very new in the beginning of 80s. I'm an 83 baby. And my mom literally told me there weren't many other moms open to this. So the groups were really small, and the lady was from like another country. And I don't have any photos because, you know, in 83 there weren't any underwater cameras, but I love the water, and every time, I have to say, when I'm underwater, it gives me that sense of harmony and love. And it must be related to my childhood, knowing that my mother, you know, the little time she had for me being on stage was being in water and taking me as a baby underwater. And I think that's just fascinating.
When we think about baby, they know how to breathe. Right? You don't need to, Brendon, you don't teach a baby how to breathe. Right? What
No, they
happens,
naturally do.
right, in society? What happens? Things come at us like this all the time. And so we learn how to not breathe. We have all these different things that are happening to us. So all of a sudden we get into that, we get away from the natural breathing. We get into all these different ideas and concepts and stress, if you will, in life. Because I think stress causes people not to breathe properly. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I mean, so much of it is created in our own mind and analytical thought of living in the past or the future as well. You know, like that's the thing is, if you look at a baby, they're in that present moment. You know, so they're not going to have that level of stress. And obviously, there's a lot of factors that come into that as growing as an adult and living in society. But for the most part, most adults live in that place of, you know, past or future, and the stress that that's bringing in from their own thought, and how much we can just change that story by changing the story in our own head.
Is that why people think I'm a baby?
You just
I am like the chillest guy. You got to see me. I mean, I've been told that when there's like danger, I'm calm. I am. I used to be a bouncer in New York City in nightclubs and all that. And I was attacked by people trying to kill me. And I was like calm. I was like, oh, just turn around. I'd whisper in their ear, do you want to go home or do you want to go to jail? Your choice.
Hospital.
You know, I gave them an ultimatum, you know.
very
Most
calmly.
people, they were really shocked that they thought they were going to take my head off. And all of a sudden I'm whispering in their ear. And they're like, who are you? You know, because most bouncers that I worked with used to hurt people because they thought, oh, I gotta overpower you. I gotta hurt you. I never hurt one person when I was a bouncer, and the police never came looking for me because it wasn't about me. They were just drunk. They were just dumb, you know. So it was, for me, it was just like calming them down and saying, hey, you know what? You made a mistake. You swung at me. Nothing personal. Do you want to go home or do you want to go to jail? Your choice. But it was that calmness, I think, also that they were shocked that, like they really tried to punch me out, or sometimes there was weapons, sometimes there was different things. And the fact that I turned them calmly and just whispered, they're like, what are you? Who are you? Because it's the calmness that overcame me. And that's how I've lived my whole life. So for me, it's understanding that in order to calm someone else, you yourself have to be calm, right?
Yeah, like your energy would have gone onto them. Like we all, there's 3 feet around us. They can measure now the energy that we put out. But I think also your ability to not have an ego in that situation would diffuse so much, because most bouncers and all bouncers that I've ever witnessed, they wouldn't be able to, that would be too much for their ego to be like that. So I think you've been able to be so in touch with that, for that other person, like, oh wow, like he doesn't want to go at me, he's actually looking out for me, and it just diffuses the situation automatically.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, some were crazy and they went to jail anyway, but
But you at least whispered first, right?
Yeah, that's right. Brandon, we'll see how calm Mr. Sifu Raphael is when he sees the first huntsman close to him, or like a 2-meter python in the garden. Let's see.
Yes, yeah. We do have
we'll
some
see backflips from the black belt.
Yeah.
I will.
You don't get probably too many snakes in New York City.
Oh, there's more than snakes in New York City.
Yeah, true. Brendon, I am really open to share one of my first experiences with you, just to be open for other people not to be shy to contact you and go, oh, I don't know if I'm ready yet, or I have this to work out, or some people have anxiety, some people depression. And with me, I sometimes broke into giggles, and you're like, Celeste, concentrate and let's start again. So, but I can imagine some people, I guess, cry, some people giggle, can we talk about the different reactions or response? You just spoke about being a bouncer, being calm, not letting ego get in. So for people to come and do your workshops, if they're here in Byron, if not online, can you share a little bit about, this is what clients go through and it's okay?
Yeah. So I guess the beauty that I see with breathwork is it's always going to bring up for you what's needed. So you can't control the outcome. And the worst thing you can do is try to control that outcome. Like if you I'm going to this breathwork because I want to move through this, it's like, no, the breathwork is going to tell you what you need. So in your moment, maybe you needed some joy after, having a very busy weekend. That's what came through. And it's fine to giggle. And like I shared with you, is next time I was like, instead of giggling, stay with the breath, but feel that joy through your body instead. So joy is one that comes up. I've had a client recently who even sat up in his breath work, and he didn't actually even remember that he sat up, but he actually shared that through his breathwork experience, he had a moment where he came out and just felt immense pride for himself. And he actually sat up in that moment, like he's opening up, but he was obviously awesome. In his own trance. So he didn't realize he actually sat up. So that's happened. I don't really do somatic. I don't hold somatic breath work. So I don't have clients that generally release a lot of trauma, because that's more in that somatic style of breath, which is a much longer journey. But that can be one of the things that comes up. But that can come up in the ice bath. Like I've had people before who they just want to cry and let out and just verbalize the pain they're going through, which is fine. Like I think it's good to not hold those emotions in. Then some people, like for me, when I do breath work, I feel incredible charges of energy through my body. And some other clients see sacred geometry and this incredible light show. So there's just, for every person, it's so different, and every journey can be so different. And like I said, it's always going to bring up for you what you need in that time.
Wow. So for me, it was my solar plexus. So that strong yellow that I felt, that was the most strongest coming out. And I felt so childish sometimes. It's like being the naughty kid in class. You're like, come on, Celeste, like respect the teacher. And but I couldn't hold back. I would sometimes go into giggles. So basically, and I know I'm like on an open talk show, the whole world now knows, but I'm open to share this. So basically, that's what I was needing more, is just more joy and more laughter and more solar plexus.
Yeah, in that moment, like that's what came through for you, and you just need to honor that. So, like I said, you know, I know you've got a very full-on job. When you're at work, it's at work and it's serious business, and that Monday for you is a bit more of that, you know, recovery and self-care day. And what's more of a beautiful way than having joy in your day than self-care?
Yeah.
Self-care.
Your body responded accordingly.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I was actually thinking maybe next Monday that we'll do a little short clip of me going into the ice bath, so we could share that one day. So
Let's do it.
Definitely.
Let's do it. Go ahead. Go ahead, Celeste.
I wanted to also ask on that note on how people react or respond. Is it very different to male and female? Are there more classes that are just male, just female? Is it mixed? Do you put ages together? Like, I know this might be a general question, but some people might go, no, I need to have one-on-one sessions only, or I just need to be around just women, the divine female energy. What do you recommend, or what has been your experience?
I think it's important to do what you feel comfortable with. That's what's most important, because that's going to allow you to fully drop in and let go. Like the breath work, even when I've done somatic release work before, I'm very intentional and conscious of who I do that, like who's holding that space for me in that stage, because I think it's very important. So it's really, if you feel most comfortable being around other men, like I do men's, like we do like men's or like day retreats with men, because I think it's still very important for men to come together and have time together with just men, and same for the women. And then as a weekly class, we do mixed classes, because it's powerful for men and women to be together, and then also have times of separation as well. So, and if you want one-on-one, if that's what you feel most comfortable with at the start, then I would say go with that. Or like maybe if you're someone who you're around a lot of people all the time and you're managing people and you're very stimulated, maybe you just want some only me time and that's it, then move towards that if that's what you feel like you need.
You just said, for the men to get together. And the reason I smiled was because I wanted to joke. I'm sure the men sometimes want to get away from us women going, because we're probably the main reason while their nervous system is like, on fire. So I know that you do men's retreats as well. Because just for this episode, I'd love to do a part 2 with you, Brendon. But can you please go into that as well? Because every time most people speak about wellness and mental health and well-being, I feel like as a woman, I often feel like it's more orientated to women. And because, men don't do wellness, or men don't do beauty, or men don't do, yoga or meditation. And I think we're really going into a new world where men are now going, you know what, I'm happy to be with other men and work on myself. Can we go into that, Brendon? Because I think it's fascinating what you do.
Yeah, of course. So I'm partnered with this brand that I'm wearing, WPN Weapon. So at the moment for men, so we do events and we're working towards doing retreats where we bring men together to focus on their physical, mental, and emotional health. So for most men, working out their physical health is quite easy. There's not a lot of challenge in that. Yes, there's some resistance, but it's not a big stretch for them. And mental health is, I guess that stigma is slowly lifting depending on what your circle and environments of friends. Like in my environment, it's very easy to speak about. but I think still there's a lot of work to do in that space as well. But the big thing that is missing a lot is emotional health, and men actually being able to have a space to come together and just be able to open and share without being coached as well. So what we do is we actually sit in traditional men's circles, which we sit in a circle. We have quite a basic framework where there's some prompts to just share about a few things. And the big thing is, because us men, we're natural problem solvers. So when we sit in that circle, we're just there to hold space. So we're not there to coach the person speaking through what it is. It's just literally a forum for them to be able to share completely openly what they need to share, because sometimes there's things that we might be moving through that we don't want to share, like maybe aren't best to share with our partner. Maybe we need to get some reflection from other men. And I know the first time that I sat in a men's circle, I was like, wow, there's other men going through the exact same thing that I'm moving through. Maybe the situation's a little bit different, but it's the same thing. And it was really reassuring to know that, and comforting, because often as men, we can lone wolf it, especially in that emotions department. And we will, as being like a problem solver, we will do everything within ourselves first and explore every avenue before we'll reach out. But sometimes we don't reach out, and that's why you see, there's such high suicide rates and depression in men compared to women, because I think it's much more, women naturally sit in circles and discuss from an emotional level much easier, whereas men, through social conditioning, we've been taught to shut that down from a young age. Like you said, learning to breathe from a young age, like Raphael's doing. Society has taught us as men to not show emotion at a young age, that it's weak. That's not what a true man is. Whereas we're slowly starting to shift now, I think, to what I like to call like a healthy developed masculine, which is a man who is, yes, can sit in his primal warrior energy and protection for his family, but then also knows how to be soft and when to be soft. And soft in the aspect of holding space for his partner or whoever it is, being able to be gentle natured, and yeah, like being able to like not always have to be in that fix it mode as well. You can just sit there and listen, and also share from your own vulnerable space.
Be vulnerable.
Yeah. Vulnerable.
So that's one of the big things is, like integrating those three, because the physical allows us to, like, if you bring a group of 20 men together or 15 men together and you're like, all right, let's sit in a circle and just talk about our feelings. Most men are going to be very resistant, right? If they haven't done much level of like emotional awareness and intelligence work. But if we do the physical and we build that camaraderie, right? And then the layers start to come down, those masks start to come down, and we start to do breath work, move through that mental resistance together, then that opens a space of, all right, now we feel like we're brothers and we're linked together already. And then those walls start to come down further, and we can have real open, honest, vulnerable conversations and know that that space is completely safe for that as well. And then what's said in that circle isn't going outside of that circle, because a lot of men don't have that space around their friends because they maybe feel like from a judgment point of view, they can't share that. And you'll often see men, the only time that they are vulnerable is when they're drinking alcohol, because that's a crux where they're like, oh, I was just drunk. I did that because I said that because I was drunk. Like there's a way out to, like, if they get that negative feedback, it's like, oh, it's because I was this. It's not like I was actually feeling that way, and I'm tapping into my emotions.
Wow.
They blame something else, right, for their trueness.
Yeah, because it doesn't feel accepted, and it comes back to, like I said, that conditioning, which is so deep layered, from a young age.
Go ahead, Celeste.
No, you go.
Well, I wanted to just bring up the video for Heroes Rising, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So definitely, Brendon, I think you need to come to New York, and I know Celeste is coming, so let me share this with you guys here.
Heroes Rising Apex is the highly anticipated business event of the year. This gathering of industry leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, and visionaries promises to be a game-changing experience that will inspire, educate, and provide networking opportunities. Get ready to immerse yourself in a world of innovation, strategy, and collaboration as we embark on an unforgettable journey of learning, growth, and success. Join us in New York on July 14th through the 16th. Go to heroesrisingapex.com for tickets.
And there you have it. Come to
Hi,
New York.
that was so cool. Besides the mobile part, otherwise I loved it. It wasn't person on the phone. No, I'm joking.
But you know,
Yeah,
what,
so
when we think about bringing people together and enticing them to be authentic, to be genuine, to let go of their learned behaviors, if you will, to be more animalistic, to be true to nature. My question for you, Brendon, is what inspired you to go into this type of work?
Yeah, so I reached a point in my life, so through I guess my early to mid 20s, where I was just in that space of partying and you know I'd always had big ambitions as a teenager to live life differently, and I just kind of got stuck in that cycle of living for the weekend and partying. And I got home from a trip in Europe, but I'd been away for about 8 weeks with a lot of partying. And I was just like, I'm ready for something different. Like I'm wasting my life away here. And it was a progression. So that I think one of the big things with creating change is finding a community that aligns with where you want to go or where you want to get to. And I was able to do that. And incrementally it started with really working on my mindset and my nutrition and my health. And I'd always been like athletic. So I was always like in the gym and things like that. But then on the weekends I'd party a lot. But I started to really like look at what I was putting into my body and really changed my mindset to one for longevity. And how is this going to be helping me to when I'm like 70, 80 years old? And so it started with, you know, the mindset and the nutrition. And then I kind of did that for about 5 or 6 years. And then I started to feel like I was going around in circles a bit. And that's when I was like, that emotional embodiment piece is the missing part. So over the last 3 to 4 years, I started doing a lot more in that space to integrate all the mindset work and the self-development work with creating greater emotional awareness and intelligence and embodiment and combining them together, which I think is really powerful when you can do both.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for doing this for people, especially for the men's group.
Yeah, well, I see, I guess, for me, like, because I used to be a very close-hearted man, and it was very challenging for me to show emotion. And it's just like now, because I've learned how to express and open up, life is just so much richer, like within the relationships you can have, but even your experience of life. And I find it really powerful to help other men to be able to tap into that and start to go on that journey. And it's a big journey because there's so much stuff there from our childhood and even like generational trauma and things like that. So it's really confronting. And often I say, like, is sometimes if we're around a group of friends that maybe aren't conducive to who we actually want to be as our best version of ourselves, the biggest challenge is stepping away from that and being a lone wolf for a little bit until you find your new community. And so many people, unfortunately, aren't willing to do that. And that's why they stay in communities and environments that don't actually lift them up. So that's the first big challenge. But then obviously moving through the levels of growth and everything that comes up with that. But on the other side, life is much more richer. So it's definitely worth it.
Yes, it is.
What do you think about meditation? Like, I meditate every day. One of the things that, you know, I'm up before most people are doing anything, right?
Yeah.
I've been told that I have many lives in the same day because I truly take advantage of every day. Every day is an opportunity to truly live my life, to be more than I was yesterday. If I'm not learning every single day, I am bored. So for me, it's that drive to get more, what else could I learn today? Who can I talk to? How can I experience something new? So every day I'm looking to experience something, to do something. But before I can go out into the world to do anything, I have to focus on me first, right? So this is why I do meditation. My breath work is included. Even when I work out, especially when I work out, my breath work is so critical to me getting a great workout than if I don't focus on my breath.
Yeah, well, I think meditation is the key for you to owning your day and not it running you, because it's like that time in the morning, like you said, is setting you up to ground yourself and vision for who you want to be, what you want to create before all the external noise comes in. Because once you're out of that and you're into your day, there's so much external noise happening, right? So that meditation just allows you to like ground into your vision and what you want to be each day. And like you said, like, look at the vitality that you have. I can tell it from, just meeting you. And that's, if you want to, I think, live a long, healthy, like life full of vitality, then meditation is a key component, and also a key component to creating the lifestyle that you actually want, instead of just doing this automatic programming that can happen when we just go into day-to-day life. But that meditation, like in the morning and even also at night before we sleep, can just ground us in helping us to get that to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah. The other thing that I do every day is I go through my gratitude. I'm grateful. Listen, I woke up this morning. I am grateful.
Yeah.
So I am alive. Let's make something out of it. So many people live a sedentary lifestyle that they wake up and it's almost like Groundhog Day, like the movie, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Life, I'm sorry, but that would be boring.
That'd be horrible. Like since I left the corporate world about 5 years ago, I'm not worried about, is it a public holiday? Is it a weekend? Because I've created a lifestyle now that I actually get to enjoy and like love every day. And yes, there's moments in days that are still challenging, no doubt, but it's like I'm getting to choose how I actually live my life, instead of just, like you said, that Groundhog Day. Like, I couldn't think of anything worse, like waking up and just like doing something that does not light me up whatsoever, and just doing that over for like 5-6 days, to have 1 or 2 days to yourself, to then maybe have 2 weeks break a year. Like, for me, that's not living.
Slavery, and that's what the government unfortunately puts a lot of people into that position, almost, financially and things like that. Yeah.
Well, like if you look back in the I was just going to quickly say, if you look back, I guess, in more the early like 1900s, and that it was much more, people were more business owners and entrepreneurs essentially. And then obviously industrialization came in, and the whole working in the factory lines and the offices, and it all changed. And I think now it's starting to, with our generation, shift back to more people wanting to become entrepreneurs. And there's so much accessibility, and that's one of the beautiful things with technology is it's allowing us more opportunities as well to really be able to like create the lifestyle we want, even if we don't come from a financial backing. We can create it much, much easier. But there's also that element of, it's never been easier, but it's also never been harder, because the amount of distractions we have is tenfold.
We need a lot of resilience every day and discipline.
Yep.
Whether we like it or not, we still need that industry, if you will, right? We still need people to be able to create things. So a lot of people complain that there's robotics coming into taking people's jobs. But then how do we complain that, people are working in factories? But so that's a whole nother topic we could get into.
Yeah, it is. I just felt like, we should have an episode about it. I was already like, ticka going. Like,
I saw you thinking.
Yeah.
That's
the beauty. Big topic.
Yeah, that's the beauty when we can share our thoughts, our ideas, our concepts. And I think that we can maybe have this show for another 2-3 hours for sure, especially even on breath work, even on what we should be thinking about when we're meditating, because that's a whole show by itself. And when we think about the breath work, and we think about even ice baths or cold showers or polar bear plunges, all these different things, the effects it has on our bodies, even from going into a sauna, right? Why do we go into a sauna? And then I like going into a sauna and then cold water. That's the thing for me. So it's a very interesting when we can think about what we can do with our body and the feelings that we can generate through climate, if you will, right?
Yeah, you can go to that extreme end of cold, extreme end of hot for that discomfort, taking your body to that, like I said, that healthy discomfort.
Yeah. We should talk about that, Brendon. We definitely should do a part 2 where we go more into what you just said, Raphael, into what also the visualization and helping people to understand what meditation can be like for other people. Because there's also still so many different versions. And I think it's important for everyone to know that it's a journey again to get to certain stages of deep meditation. It doesn't happen just...
Time flies, doesn't it? It's already 6 past the hour.
Yes.
It's gone.
Not 6 past, but we've been on for an hour and 6 minutes already.
That's fine.
And it seems like we just got on, doesn't it?
We'll bring Brendon back on in April. Yeah. Just for all the listeners and viewers, so Brendon Spadek, that's how people can get hold of you. So for those who are not local in our area, you do online classes as well. So anyone, I guess, that speaks English, that would support the session, but anyone in the world could actually be working with you. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's obviously, unfortunately, I'm not bilingual, but as long as they're English, they can contact me through Instagram. My handle is my name on the banner there. So yeah, they can reach out to me and we can discuss some options.
Very cool.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, and especially the techniques. So the 4 corners, I think that's a great little tool for people. As you said, it's for free. There's no more excuse. You can do these things, and
you can get lost in one of those corners.
Yeah, you could. I was surprised you said 5 to 10 times, and I thought I always started giggling at the 4th time. So I have a lot of work to do.
It's like you said, like before with meditation, breathwork's the same. Like becoming more connected to our breath, like from a conscious space, and it's a practice as well. It's a practice, like everything. So,
Celeste, you said it was like so much when you thought I have to do it for a certain amount of times. What if you did it the way Brendon and I do it? I do it all day long. What if?
What if? I don't know. Brendon?
By the way, I want to invite you both to my 100th birthday party. So that, because we will be breathing. It's going to be a breathing party without oxygen
all about
tanks.
The breath control. Yeah, I love that. And that's, I was going to say on the next time we all catch up, that's a big thing for me, is around redefining age barriers and what that looks like. Because my big passion is around like longevity and vitality, and we get to choose how we age. And that's the big thing.
Oh, yes, that is a subject we can go into. I think as women suffer a lot with age. So, yeah, I'm on my 39 going on to 40. So I'm just like, oh, it feels old. But most of all my girlfriends are turning 50. So they're all like, Celeste, shh.
Like, I just turned 36, and I honestly bring gratitude for that, because I was just thinking about this recently, and I'm like, how many people would have loved to turn 36? Like, how many people passed away at the age of 10 or 18 or 20 and they didn't get to live 36 years? So I think when we can bring aging from a space of gratitude that we've actually got to experience life for that long, that it can shift your viewpoint instead of, oh, I'm aging, like,
Well, I just last week I celebrated my 25th birthday, but it was my 33rd anniversary of it. So.
I was like trying to do the maths on that 25th time.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I forgot. I thought it was a different. Oh. I was like, I had it in my diary. Wait a minute. I was like crawling away. Sorry. Well, I'm there for guys, so.
We got, when you guys come to New York, we'll celebrate everybody's birthday. How's that?
That's right.
Sounds great. Big breathing party.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate you, Brendon, for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and your concepts. And we definitely need you to come back.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on. And also, I loved your intro. That got me so pumped up for the show too, by the way. I forgot
Cool.
to mention
The countdown.
But yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been, it's gone so fast, and I feel like we've only just started. So I look forward to chatting with you both again and just exploring and see where that conversation goes.
Yeah. Well, we're going to say goodbye to everybody, but you hang on a second, okay? All right, everybody, have an amazing day. We will see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.